visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Chief Petty Officer Elizabeth Miller. We warmly welcome the family of Private Vernon Charles Scattergood, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. Tonight, we also warmly welcome Mr. Trevor Davis, who is a veteran of the Second World War. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of the Good Shepherd Primary School, Plumpton, New South Wales. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Boys and girls, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
tribute to Private Vernon Charles Scattergood. Vernon Scattergood, known as Vern, was born on the 9th of August 1922 in Elstonwick, Victoria, the son of Charles Edward and Constance Scattergood, who grew up in Elwood with his two sisters, attending the local Elwood Central School and later Melbourne High School. He was a Boy Scout and became captain of the local hockey team. After his education, Vern Scattergood went to work as a stock clerk for United Artists. Scattergood was 16 years old on the outbreak of war in 1939. When he turned 18, he joined the Militia's Victoria Scottish Regiment before he transferred to the 39th Battalion. 2 days after the Japanese attacked US fleet at Pearl Harbor and on the British Himalaya on the 9th of December 1941, the 39th Battalion was ordered to prepare to move, as it was mobilised for war service. Scattergood spent Christmas Day 1941 in camp before his battalion left for Papua, arriving in Port Moresby in January 1942. There, the 39th Brigade was primarily involved in labouring duties. There were ships to unload, roads to construct, defensive positions to be dug and wired, and a constant battle against malaria, dengue fever, and dysentery. Scattergood suffered a bout of dysentery in January, but had recovered by the time the Japanese made their first air raid on Port Moresby on the 3rd of February 1942. In June, as the military situation in the South Pacific deteriorated, the 39th Battalion received orders to move up the Kokoda Trail in order to act as a blocking force against the possible Japanese advance overland from the north coast. In order to counter this threat, Maruba Force, composed of troops from the 39th Battalion and the Papua Infantry Battalion, was sent to Kokoda, a Papuan administration post with houses for magistrates and police, a hospital, a rubber plantation, and the only airfield in the region. Scattergood and his battalion began the laborious march over the Kokoda Trail, a 96-kilometre single-foot thoroughfare running through Owen Stanley Range, arriving at their destination in mid-July. Shortly afterwards, Japanese forces began landing on Papua's north coast, and in the early hours of the 29th of July, they attacked the main position of Kokoda. Only 80 men from B Company were there at the time, and they were no match for the Japanese. Casualties were high, and Kokoda was lost. The battle to retake Kokoda began on the 8th of August. Scattergood's A Company entered Kokoda and surprisingly found it held only by a small group. But the Japanese reacted with fury and force. On the 9th of August, they responded with 2 attacks of about 200 troops, and in the afternoon launched a force of about 300. What happened to them that next day is described best by John Donald Mackay, who was in A Company alongside Vernon Scattergood. Just on dusk, there was a nice little shower of rain, and the first assault wave came in. We stopped them. My Bren gun group were firing, and I could see the gun firing now. No kidding. You could see the bullets going up the barrel, and it ran red hot. Vern Scattergood had a Bren too, and was firing widely. We stopped them. Then there was a bit of a pause before the next wave came in and overran us. So we said, we better get out because they've gone past us. Well, Scattergood, he got excited. He was standing up firing the Bren from the hip, and that was the last I saw of young Scattergood. He must have been hit. We couldn't find him in the dark, and we moved back. The Japanese counterattack disseminated our A Company, forcing the few remaining soldiers to retreat. Mackay was later awarded the military medal for his action in conflict, but Private Vernon Scattergood was never seen again. His body was never recovered, and he was presumed dead. He was 20 years old. Today, his name appears on the Port Moresby Memorial, which commemorates over 700 men who gave their lives during the operations in Papua and who have no known grave. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among with almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Vernon Charles Scattergood, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.